you going?
Maybe I'm not going to drink it.
Well, you put it right here.
This is Curiosities, just published, and so this is the first time we've gotten to see the copy. And here's Ron's bio.
Come on.
Ron Wolf is a fiction writer, cartoonist, and journalist. On newspaper assignment, he rode the Union Pacific's last steam locomotive, an experience that figures into the town of 1,000 wonders. The story is set in his hometown of North Platte, Nebraska, where his grandmother used her war-rationed sugar to make hundreds of birthday cakes for servicemen at the North Platte Canteen. His horror novel, Old Fears, co-written with John Woolley, is optioned for movies and television.
Still.
Woo, woo, woo.
It's not a movie and it's not a TV show, but it's still
Still optioned. Yeah.
So, Ron has a story at the end of the book. So we're going to find the right page number, and he's going to read it.
unaccustomed as I am. But you're going to pitch in.
If you really
We can all
struggle,
pitch in.
we'll all three help.
All right, the conductor called North Platte, and Caleb felt a thud in his heart as if the train had jolted. Standing, he nearly fell. North Platte, Nebraska. The steam whistle blasted over the conductor's announcement of the date, the all-important date of arrival, but still. It was the right place, and it could be the right time, this time, his time, now. But he wasn't positioned, seated, to leave the train. And what if the chance never came again? He didn't know all the rules, or who made the rules, but he knew the one that came with the ticket, no promises. The train slowed into the station, westbound from out of the night, out of the stars, into the lights of the train yard, Bailey Yard. The Union Pacific hub brought trains from everywhere to the middle of nowhere, the small town surrounded by sandhills and cornfields. Caleb tried to translate the blur of red and green signal lights into his memory of the same place as it had looked once a time ago. On a day as blue as the light off a gun barrel, but the dark held tight to its mysteries. He had seen the yard just that one time, witnessed through the eyes of just another Army draftee on his way east, thinking there was nothing that could hurt worse than the hopeless void inside him, no idea how a bullet felt. Eastbound Caleb Brenner, never Mr. Brenner, never Cal, sometimes red as much for the tinge of his ears as for the spill of red hair that was one of the first things the Army took away from him. He was a freckle-faced stretch of arms and legs and icy shards of nerves and loneliness on his first ever train ride, eastbound to Piedmont, New York, to ship out from the Hudson River port to destination, not for him to know. He was 18 years old, not quite manhood, the whole of him compressed to smaller than life in a stiff uniform. The train had arrived in a hoot and holler, steam and blue sky, the jostling excitement that came with a load of soldiers and the prospect of 15 minutes freedom. North Platte's Front Street offered the speediest brothels this side of Omaha. Caleb had moved only to gain a window seat on that sleeted morning in February 1941, and then not to look out the train window. He breathed against the glass to make a circle of condensation, in which he could pretend to see the white siding of the farm home he had left 1,000 miles behind. The sugar beet acres that his dad left alone to do the work of a younger man. But the fog cleared to a very different sight, a very different kind of warmth than just a pane of glass away. And ever since he had tried to imagine her name, Sheila, Jeanette, Margie, 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 Margie of the green, green eyes. Westbound Caleb Brennan figured the wet cardboard ticket out of his olive drab shirt pocket and verified how the front of the ticket read through the red blotches. North Platte, Nebraska, December 22nd, 1944. He tried again to make out the writer's rights and responsibilities on the back, but only the first lines remained legible as the meaning extinguished into smaller and smaller print. Caleb searched his fellow writers for any sign that one of the seated might be ready to leave the train. If any of the seated got up, then he, Caleb, could take that spot. The ticket was clear on that much. He would gain the rights of a seated passenger. This your stop, son? Could be, Caleb said with a nod that his long neck overstated. He looked for the man who had spoken to him, for the source of this tired voice and the tremble of mist that surrounded him, that filled the aisle. Ever done this before, the man said, closer but no more distinct. No, I didn't think so. You look like I felt the first time I jumped out of a transport. 511th Parachute Infantry. Got a cigarette? Caleb found the pack, tapped out a lucky strike for a fellow soldier. The man sparked a Zippo lighter that brought his facial planes into focus for a flickering moment. Flat nose, partial smile, partial blank. Mine's Laramie, Wyoming, not here, the man said. I don't mind letting go a couple pointers. How to watch these people. I know enough. I've come close to a seat more than once. Caleb felt hands on his shoulders from behind, a touch that melted through him as the almost imaginary pressure urged him closer to the seated passengers. You can't wait for somebody to get up, the man said. By that time you're too late. Somebody else will have the seat. Miss your chance, you're done. Your candle out. Way to do this, you watch for all the little ways they move. See that one across. She's got her shoulder angled toward the aisle. She's likely. And that one, the finger drum on the armrest, but he hasn't once glanced out. He's impatient. He wants to keep going, doesn't want the train to stop. I'd fix on that woman 3 up. See, the strawberry that straightened her hat. Try to work your way that direction. Be ready to move fast. Caleb did, but the air seemed to thicken around him. Dense, hard to move, impossible to see through. He pressed, but the standing opposed him. They blocked him with smeared impressions of bodies crushed together. Currents of cold and colder, a hand in his face, a fist thrown. He was just behind the strawberry blonde with the green ribbon hat, the perfect curl of hair at the back of her neck. Familiar, so familiar. The train slowed to a meditative clack-clack, broken by a long second blast from the locomotive's steam trumpet, the hiss of the air brakes. She stood, half-stepped into the aisle. Caleb plunged for the empty seat. In the blur and collision that forced him aside, he came so close to her that he physically brushed her shoulder. The touch left a here-and-gone bloodstain on her crisp white sleeve. She turned to him with eyes the green of a satin ribbon, the green that melted winter. Do I know you? She asked, and he would have said, yes, yes, don't you see, you've known me forever, Margie. But the green eyes lost focus and the face sank to confusion, and she turned as if she hadn't seen him at all. Whatever made him expect more? He'd been nothing more than a passing uniform to her. A glance through the train window, and he clung to her smile like a photo of a movie star, folded and kept safe under the band of his helmet. The conductor's last call broke the spell. North Platte, the big man hailed. He strode the aisle as if it were empty. The brass plate on his blue cap made the conductor and his pronouncement official. North Platte, June 11, 1953. And she was gone. Out of the window this time, Caleb saw her meet a red-headed soldier on the platform. Caught a glimpse of the small drama of the lucky man's slow step toward her, hers toward him. The embrace, was it, that was blanked from Caleb's view by a flash of sunlight on glass. The locomotive cried its departure 2 longs. The brakes released and the train pulled forward, built speed through smoke and steam that clouded the windows. Caleb saw the contested seat that was occupied by a crew-cut young serviceman like him. Only the uniform was different, a Marine. The winner allowed himself only a moment's expression of relief as he settled in, and then leaned forward as if to make the train run faster, hands clasped in a white knot between his knees. Ever wonder where other people are going? The raspy-voiced woman spoke at Caleb's side. Why it's so important for them to be there? Caleb straightened, weak with failure. Train in motion, the haze thinned to a barely felt breeze, a swirling wreath around her thin face. I have my reasons, she said, and what do you care? Enough, Caleb said. Oakland, California, she said, looking down to the thrumming floor, as if Oakland might appear at her feet, her lace-up ankle boots, old Mother Hubbard's farm work footwear. I have a son there. Caleb wanted to look away from the vapor shape of her to look back in the solid direction of North Platte. He doesn't know I'm coming, she said, but I have to know. Night my husband left, he told my son why. He never told me, and I have to know why. My boy, he had his father's cold eyes, and he showed me his father's buck knife. Never had a knife before. I didn't cry the morning the boy let out, too, dared me to stop him. I saw him off from the gate. I thought, well, mister, there you go. There you go, Thad, my honey boy. Poisoned by whatever he told you, off to be a cruel man of your own. And I wished I'd cut his hair one last time. The train ran hard and straight away from Caleb's destination. Pinkerton's found him for me, the woman said. Cost everything I had, but for the train fare and burial, and it seems like all for nothing. How much can you see of me? Anything at all of me? I can't see my own hands. She cocked her phantom head at Caleb like a chicken at a moth and said, no need to answer me. What's your story? Don't guess I have one, Caleb said, but I know one. He told about the nobody from nowhere on the troop train, newly drafted and on his way to war. How he sat by the window when the train stopped in North Platte on the way east, and how the rap, rap, rap on the frosted glass made him slide the window open, and the green eyes that met his. Here, she said, to let you know somebody cares about you. And she handed the soldier a plate with a cloth napkin over it. Here, to say thank you, to say be safe, to say come back whole. My name is... The train's departure stole her name, but not her face from Caleb's memory. He left the window open, let the ice pellets sting his face on the chance he might see her again. Another soldier had to close it. Caleb made the sandwich and the chocolate chip cookie last to Chicago, and he still had the apple in France. Caleb watched the windows to see the world change from bright to dusk, twilight to floating through stars. Wagon trains and stagecoaches had gone the same way, east and west, on the overland route from Omaha, Nebraska to San Francisco, California. But the train held to no line of time or season. The ride made good on Union Pacific's promised road of 1,000 wonders. He watched as the train pulled into Ogden, Utah on November 5th, 1955, in a blanketing snow that obscured the station. An old man in a notch-brimmed cowboy hat stepped off, one hand gripping the collar of his flannel jacket against the cold, the other cradling a rose-patterned round box tied with thick red yarn. The old hand stood alone, waiting as if for someone to meet him on the platform. The storm faded into a snow ghost and blew him to powder as the train moved on. A slab of a man in a pinstripe suit got off on a burning blue day in Reno, Nevada, on August 1st, 1931. The suit had extra wide shoulders he didn't need. It gave him the shape of a triangle balanced on a dainty pair of gloss-polished black proportions. The train pulled away to the snare drum static of 1, 2, 3, a dozen gunshots against the steam whistle. Each time one of the seated passengers rose to leave the train, another made a rush for the empty seat. And each time one of the standing gained a seat, he gained a presence as well. A weight, a reality. This man a scent of wild root cream oil hair tonic. This woman a living color and urgency, a ceaseless tap-tapping of the right foot. A sweat stain on the high-lace collar, eyes on the move, a fugitive in hiding. Purgatory, she said to the empty air. Purgatory, or is it hell? Am I out? Am I going home? But she had taken her place among the living, and the living could not hear the dead. Something more hopeful than purgatory, they told her. Something much, much more complicated than hell. Not likely bound for heaven. And where did you buy your ticket, lady? Who sold it to you? Why can't you remember? North Platte, you said? The voice spoke to Caleb the way that comes from a low, heavy build, a man's voice with bellows to be heard above steam and rail. I'm lucky I saw the war canteen. He told about the troop trains that arrived in North Platte at all hours. The eastbound carried recruits. The westbound came back with wounded from the front, coffins in the packed cars. The people of North Platte had every train. A few volunteers and then many organized the North Platte canteen in the train station. The canteen dispensed coffee and sandwiches and maybe more. Maybe a few minutes salvation of the kind that came warm and sweet and sprinkled with warm Russian sugar. And later at Normandy and Anzio and Hurtgen Forest, they would remember this stop in a place they'd never heard of before. They would talk, they would dream about North Platte, as if only in dreams could such a place exist. They found no shame in weeping over a thought of North Platte. The M site rather be in North Platte. North Platte has the prettiest, going back to North Platte. Caleb's new traveling companion smelled of spearmint. He tapped out 2 sticks of beech nut chewing gum, offering the first to Caleb. The rest of the pack went back in the top left pocket of his bib overalls where the sewn-on patch read Steve Levy. Been there before, he said. Been there to set foot? Caleb shook his head. Know when you have to be there? Caleb named the date. Thought so. Bastogne, was it? Don't know. Caleb didn't. I don't expect it matters, the man said. Ticket tells you all you need to know. Could be that everything comes clear to you once you got 2 feet on the ground, or maybe you go through the rest of eternity as dumb as a beetle. I got no destination except... He jabbed a thumb toward the front of the train. I belong up there, he said, and there's no way to get through the cars from here to there. I know I've tried, so I ride like I don't know any better. He tugged at the fingers of his yellow gloves, the fingers blackened and the cuffs speckled with cinder burns. 15 years I worked my way up brakeman to engineer, he said. 17 years an engineer, Sonny Jim. And let me tell you, there's nowhere else to be, not once you've been up there. Up there's my North Platte. It's a sweet, smooth ride back here. Up there you ride the fire dragon, and she throws you side to side, but you knows you've got the hand on her. Julesburg, Colorado, May 12, 1913. A mother and baby left the train. Caleb liked to think someone had given her a seat. He wondered if he would have made the sacrifice, and he didn't like the answer. Winnemucca, Nevada, September 20, 1961. He came so close to seated just for a moment he could feel the soft red velvet upholstery, the cool touch of the polished brass support, trace the lines in the wood paneling. Oakland, California, December 3rd, 1947. He saw the farm woman candle out. Left standing, she could not leave the train. She had missed her stop. Her mouth opened to a silent scream and closed to a dot of gas flame blue light, all that was left of her. And the light ebbed away in midair. She never would find her son, never solve the mystery of her family's tragedy, never know the consequence of asking. North Platte, April 14, 1896, the engineer said. It was only a whistle stop that day, but such a commotion. Horses and horse gear and cowboys. I saw Indians. Even had a bright red stagecoach, and all this being loaded on rail cars. The excitement made him chew his gum faster, flavoring the scene this time with kissing sweet chlorophyll. And there he was in lordly fashion, himself atop the biggest, whitest stallion of the lot. Buffalo Bill Cody. Buffalo Bill and no mistake. The buckskin and the high boots. Buffalo Bill and his Wild West show. Shut me up, Jim. That's only the second best thing I ever saw in North Platte. Caleb's legs and feet looked to him as if he were standing waist-high in milky water. He had lost his fingertips. The engineer's face, nearly transparent, showed a blue dot of light between the eyes. Not much left of you but the hole in the donut, the engineer said. Me, I can't even hold an idea anymore. But this one's important. Tells you something about the good in people. Now, you might hear 100 versions of this story, but I was there, right there when it happened. It was a winter night, midnight. One of those war years. Had to stop for maintenance, and my plan was to pay respects to a certain little Susie Q on Front Street. But I'd heard about the canteen. Got there, and it was a full swing party, and the girls, how do I say this? The girls were the kind that if they kissed you, which they wouldn't, none of that, but if they did, and the sergeant came in. He told the version where the sergeant comes in hobbling on a cane. His right shirt sleeve pinned up, his bad leg and the missing arm made him reel to the side. Still and all, if you were twice his size, you wouldn't mess with him. He comes up to the coffee counter, orders 2 cups. The sergeant says, "One's for me, one's for my pal. He's not here, but I want you to keep that coffee hot for him. Keep it all the time in that same cup, the one with the chip on the handle. Because nobody and nothing comes through a war in one piece whole, but we stand up to what we lost." This guy, my pal, he wasn't much of a soldier, that's what I thought. But he picked me up and he carried me one hell of a mile back to the line. He would have made it all the way, but he caught a stitch across the back. Straight through him, straight through my leg. Even then he went down as slow as he could, to his knees. He wouldn't drop me. He said, "I'm sorry, sir. I meant to bring you home. This one's for me, one's for my pal, and I want you to keep that coffee hot for him." Caleb got the idea just past Colfax, California on a bright March morning, 1891. A candy butcher had come through, a waist-high kid, probably a runaway, with his canvas bag full of wares that included horehound lozenges and cigars. The cigar stench mingled with the wood, pulps smelling smoke from the car that burned in the stove that burned in the far back of the crowded car. "There's a way to the locomotive," he told the engineer. "Try for the next stop. Once you're off the car, then all you have to do is move your feet. Just run and get up there, Mr. Levy, up where you belong." "Used to belong," the engineer said. He was blue light more than anything else. Maybe you'll find out this train needs a new engineer. I'd grab hold of that Johnson bar one more time, give her 2 blasts, ease back on the throttle, man. The conductor called Soda Springs, Idaho, and step lively. Soda Springs, May 19th, 1967. First thing you need a seat, Caleb said. "I know enough. I've come close to a seat more than once. What you do is you watch all the little ways they move." The conductor called North Platte, Nebraska. Caleb tried to pull himself tall as the train slowed. The conductor walked the aisle through the phantoms. Caleb watched, but no one in the car gave any sign of leaving. The conductor neared, swinging his watch on a gleaming gold chain. He clicked open the watch front, consulted the dial. North Platte, the conductor called. Caleb's destination, the name he recalled so clearly printed on the ticket. December 22nd, 1944, the conductor called. Caleb's date, clearly on the ticket, but he couldn't remember who sold him the ticket or how he paid for it or what he'd done with it. Nobody moved, none of the seated passengers. The first sliver of dawn scratched a rose-colored line across the windows. Where the glass might have reflected a man in Caleb's place, it gave back nothing but a glint of blue. The seated were mostly asleep, jumbled against each other. Each 2 or 3 of them, family or strangers, seemed to have voted on whether to topple left or right, and nobody stirred. Nobody would. The conductor walked directly to Caleb. His eyes came level to Caleb's. His eyes and his uniform were the same shade of cobalt. He smoothed the ends of his mustache. Caleb had known officers less imposing than the conductor, men of rank who looked left and who looked right through him. Maybe he'd always been a ghost. "Special arrangements have been made for you, Mr. Brennan," the conductor said. "If you would follow me." He extended a formal arm to point the way. "I have a seat for you. Compliments of the new engineer." The seat placed Caleb in a separate car with just a few other passengers spaced out. His sense of smell came back with the message that the car reeked of smoke, but his uniform repelled the surroundings, clean and crisp, ready for inspection. His fingers came back with a stiff ache, and his hands with a stinging clap and a clap together, and his legs with a spring that lifted him with solid weight as the train rolled to a stop. "Watch your step, sir," the conductor said as Caleb exited the car. One foot and another on the concrete platform. He walked to the sign that read North Platte Canteen. He fell in with a crowd of servicemen bounding through the open doors. The jukebox played "I'll Get By" with Harry James and his orchestra and Bing Crosby swinging on a star over a scene that resembled the sweet oven fragrance and commotion of a state fair bake-off. Caleb made his way past tables of cakes and cookies and sandwiches offered by women in white kitchen aprons. mothers, grandmothers, sisters, girlfriends, the army of the home front. He returned the smiles of strangers, accepted handshakes, and more understood why he was there. His booted feet let him step clack across the black and white tiled floor to the coffee counter to the far end of the red-topped counter to the empty seat and the steaming cup at the far end. He settled in to drink his coffee with his thumb over the crack on top of the handle, and to wait forever, if it takes forever, but maybe no longer than the next arrival, for the green-eyed girl who would step off the train on June 11, 1953.
Wow!
Yay!
Good job. Congratulations again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's full of June 11th is our wedding anniversary, 1953 is Jan's
Oh.
birthday year, Margie was my mother's name, and 511th Parachute Infantry was the outfit Rod Serling served in.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you.
a
Really
Christmas
cool.
tradition.
Yeah.
From now on, you write a story and then read it Christmas Eve.
And Charlie appreciates it.
All right.
That's a sweet story, Ron.
Mm-hmm. And the dog is